Hey, welcome back to VMworld 2013. This is theCUBE, our flagship program out the events extracted city from the noise. I'm John Furrier, the founder of SiliconANGLE. I'm joined by my co-host, Dave Vellante, co-founder of Wikibon.org. Go to wikibon.org for free content. Go to SiliconANGLE for the reference point for tech innovation. And go to siliconangle.com for all the footage. Also go to youtube.com/SiliconANGLE for all the replays. I'm joined with my co-host.
Hi everybody, I'm Dave Vellante. Lee Caswell is here. He's the Vice President of Virtualization Product Group at Fusion.io. Lee, welcome back to theCUBE.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. See you guys again. This venue is terrific.
Yeah, you're here in a new role actually. Right?
New company, new role. Yeah. It's very exciting time.
So how's it going for you?
How many VMworlds have you been to?
Oh yeah, since the start, right?
Are you a 10-year veteran?
Exactly. So yeah, I've seen a lot of change, and since virtualization, I mean, Flash is the next big exciting thing. It's
so 10 years, I mean, a lot's changed. First 5 years, just give us your perspectives. You worked at VMware, right?
Yeah.
First 5 years and second 5 years. What's the summary? What's the bumper sticker?
You know, when we started off back in like 2000, we basically looked and said, well, what are we going to virtualize first? And it was the easy stuff. Right? Take all the applications that were running that weren't very I/O intensive. It wasn't the Oracle databases we want to go put on virtualization. Now, you've got, what, 70 to 80% of workloads being virtualized? What's left? Well, all the hard stuff, right? And that's where Flash is coming in, is how do we go and take the hard applications and make those sing in a virtual environment?
So obviously, you're heading up the virtualization team at Fusion, is that correct? That's the new
right.
roles, that's the official title?
Yes.
So what's the big news for you guys this week?
You know, we've got some very exciting deliverables that we've shown. We have a technology demonstration we're doing on a new product called IO-VDI. IO-VDI basically solves the problem of how you get performance into virtual desktops without breaking persistent storage and giving you a cost that's less than a physical desktop, which is what everybody wanted from the start. So you have to solve the cost problem, solve the performance problem. IO-VDI is that. That's the latest implementation of our IO Turbine software. So it's a very interesting way to go and say, we'll take all the benefits of the IO memory flash platform, which have been the basics of Fusion.io success.
So you and I had a chance to chat on last week prior to the embargo of the news, but one of the things that we were talking about, and then I was talking with Dave about earlier this day, was that everything at the top of the stack has always been this elusive dream, right? When Paul Maritz laid out the original vision, in 2010, it was really laid out, we call it the software mainframe, whatever you want to call it. It was a stack, and at the top of the stack you had apps. VMware tried their hand at that now, Pivotal's outside, but still there was a lot of work to do in the middle ground, right? So I would say it got stalled a little bit, mainly because the hypervisor stuff, a lot of the middleware, big data hit the scene, storage virtualization, network virtualization all kind of started to happen.
Yes.
So with that, what's happening above the stack? So stuff's starting to be commoditized, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, but then the apps, data fabrics are there. So you're at the top of the stack, you got to look up. What's the view and what's the trends there?
Well, one of the aspects of virtualizing Flash is that we're looking at basic hypervisor level virtualization first. And this was the phase one of what IO Turbine had to develop, which was how do we go and solve the IO blender problem? So any virtual appliances or virtual machines have to go and look carefully at how we're going to go take what looks like now a random workload, and how do we accelerate that? That was phase one. Now, we have with IO-VDI a very interesting way to run in the guest and add more intelligence. And so the intelligence now could be, hey, in a desktop environment, how do I take advantage of common files to speed up boot times? How do I take advantage of the fact that there's a substantial amount of desktop writes that actually never matter? Remember your desktop, when that drive goes on, you're like, what's it doing? That's all data that doesn't ever have to go to the same. We can take advantage of this now intelligently at the guest and do some very interesting work to speed up acceleration, make sure desktops are working fast. And that's the sort of intelligence you look at, and it's all based on applications and solution knowledge. One of the things that I've been working on at Fusion.io.
So I got to ask you, Lee, I've been coming to VMworld now, probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and I remember my first VMworld, I said, oh my gosh, storage is going to get killed, right? And everybody was complaining about storage, and so then we started on this path of integration, VAI and VASA and the like, and every year Wikibon does this evaluation of the integration points, and we rank, who's got what, and I'm looking at it the other day and I'm saying, all this stuff is designed to sort of minimize the spinning disk penalty. And I'm looking at the integration points that relate to flash, and there's like a handful of them. So, to the extent we get to that vision, it seems to be coming soon, where all my active data, we talked about this with Gary earlier, where all my active data is served out of flash, all those other integrations that I just spent all this time and money on kind of become irrelevant. That was my take. So the first time I've articulated that, I wonder, if you're an expert in this area and products, is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, for years, the disk drive has been doing a dual service. It's been providing both performance, which it's not very good at, and capacity, which it's very good at.
Right.
And so what's happening is that as you look at flash right now, and this is one of the reasons Fusion IO is so successful early on, is a single PCI card serves the performance delivery of over 200 drives. And so what's happening now is there's this radical split happening where wherever you can take the performance and disaggregate it from the capacity needs, now that's changing extremely fast. And so we're seeing that overall where I'm going to use a disk for a relatively cold store, anywhere I can provide acceleration. The software stack is how we do that.
Yeah, well, if I could do that through an API call, right, based on some kind of policy. So where are we in terms of being able to do that, and what role does Fusion IO play in that regard?
Yeah, very good question. We've done some very interesting things with IO control, for example. This was an acquisition we had recently where we're now applying quality of service across, as a policy, across application environments. So if you want to have a SAN and basically run multiple applications, how do I go and make sure that I've got performance now that I can allocate so that I can make sure that I'm getting the performance I need for the applications I care about. Allocating not just baseline performance, but quality of service becomes a very important differentiator that Fusion IO is driving.
Okay, and I can do that through an API call.
That's right.
It's an open API.
Yes, and you can go and actually allocate this on a policy base by your application.
And I can change that pretty much on the fly?
On the fly, yes. It's one way of thinking that it's not just raw performance that users care about. It turns out what users care about, and you know this from your own experience, waiting for that little, the hourglass to change. What you care about is you care about consistent performance as much as you care about
predictable,
absolute performance.
consistent performance, right.
Yeah, the one thing that drives users nuts is if they don't know when something's going to complete.
Right, and if it's too slow, then they'll throw it out and get a new one, but if it's consistent and predictable and I know what's coming, then I can build processes around it.
Here's one of the areas we've spending a lot of time on. We were so early with Flash, we spent a lot of time on solutions. So if you look at what are the key solutions that Flash accelerates today, well, it's databases, server virtualization, VDI, big data. If you take those as a group, we have a set of customers that have deployed and seen successful acceleration in the field, and we're just going to show other customers, here's how you can do this. We've stripped out all the risk of making this work in the field.
So talk a little bit more about the customers and how the use cases are expanding, kind of where they started and where you see them going. And I know there's a wide variety, but I wonder if you can generalize, especially as your product line has become more robust.
Well, we've taken a mapping right now of whether you're on a server side, are you on the storage side? With caching, are you going to basically try and bridge the gap between these? And the applications look like this. So within databases love block storage and they love fast response times. You can service more customers, you can save costs, you can consolidate infrastructure. These are terrific benefits now for how Flash can make a difference. In server virtualization, we've got the ability to go and run more VMs more consistently. That's a huge driver of getting more virtual workloads going. Virtual desktops, got the same concept of how do I make sure that users get that level of consistent response times. And then lastly, in big data. Big data is all about processing. No data is deleted anymore. The data that you have is just processed over and over and over again, and that processing is all consistent with high performance Flash.
So big data, you're talking about extending in-memory analytics potentially, persisting in-memory analytics, right?
We have
everybody's HANA crazy, but HANA needs to persist that data. We've been doing a lot of work on HANA lately. It's great. I mean, we love the concept, but you talk to HANA users and they keep telling you, well, it goes down a lot. So well, we need to persist it. I know you guys are working hard on helping SAP out with that problem.
Well, there's some very interesting applications. We announced Spotify as a customer, for example. Streaming music is an ideal case of how do you have very fast performance over latency sensitive applications. These types of things and how you go and manage things like playlists, right, become very important for businesses that want to take all of the effort they were doing on managing I/O, take those developers off that work, put them on developing new applications or new features that you're going to use to compete against your competition. That's how you've changed the game right now, is I don't have to actually worry about managing I/O because we have thousands of IOPS to work with, hundreds of thousands of IOPS. All of a sudden what was a scarce resource in the past, now you've got a lot of it. So think about re-architecting. That's the sort of, cathartic change we're going through right now.
Lee, how do you talk to guys? First of all, there's two questions to this one. First one is Silicon Valley is always a new startup's coming on, so like,
sure.
Are there any seats left at the table in the I/O game? We'll get to that one in a second, but I want you to get to the second one first, which is, if you're an IT guy and you got all this storage laying around.
Yes.
NAS, SAN, DAS, all of it's laying around, usually tied to some app. By going server side, talk about the dynamics that you guys get in there. Is it a rip and replace? Is it an extension? Do you guys commoditize it? Is it just you treat storage as a resource that can be commoditized? I mean, how do you view that? What's the solution address?
It's very interesting. One thing we're finding is that there's so much extra capacity now because customers have been buying disks to deliver performance. That element, right, of having to buy, so a 15K SAS drive gives you 150 IOPS. It costs $7 to get that level of performance. Flash is relatively inexpensive at a nickel. So you can all of a sudden now, you can free up all of this capacity. So one of the things we're seeing, first off, is what drives buying decisions is, how do I consolidate the infrastructure I have? We're consolidating physical infrastructure, we're consolidating licenses as well by having this level of performance. So that's one dynamic. Customers come in different shapes and sizes. Some customers want to buy server-side flash, some customers want to buy storage-side flash. We're delivering both. We have, with our Ion products and IO control products, if you want to buy storage, we have some very interesting ways to deploy it that way. If you want to buy servers, we got the fastest in the industry on the server side. So, our mantra right now is, however you want to consume it, we're going to supply it.
So the economics is you can come in and maximize pre-existing investments, same time get that flash data center built out. Is that kind of like,
let me describe
edge?
one way we're doing that with IO VDI, which is new for virtual desktops. We're coming in saying, we're taking all the performance dependencies from the SAN and basically moving them into the server side. So by having it on the server side, now you can say, well, I'll just tap into the SAN for capacity, which is really what you wanted in the first place. I just wanted that SAN for data protection, and so the SAN administrator says, great.